So Rudy Giuliani, all while defending Donald Trump's delusions and lies and conspiracies and fantasies, was hammered, was drunk, just the whole time apparently. This is from news stories from the Daily Beast, basically covering how Trump sycophants and Trump associates in the post-Trump era are starting to air their secrets, their dirty laundry. They're starting to tell tales out of school, often against one another. And some stories are coming out about how Rudy Giuliani was just hammered the whole time, which I guess explains a lot. I want to read you some of this reporting. It says, Overstock.com founder Patrick Byrne, he's a Trump supporter, became one of the strangest characters of the last days of the Trump administration, visiting the White House in December, dressed in jeans and a hoodie, scarfing down meatballs, and bickering with Trump's legal team. But now, with Trump's dream of overturning 2020 in tatters, Byrne appears to be doing comparatively okay, and is blaming just about everyone else for President Biden's win, turning his blog into the digital burn book of the post-Trump campaign. Almost every evening and many early afternoons, Rudy was S-faced. That and his podcast were the only guarantees in Rudy's life. And the next paragraph I'm going to read you sort of reiterates this. It says here, over the next month and a half, a number of my colleagues interacted with Rudy from time to time, afternoons and evenings and weekends. Nearly all mentioned two things: the inordinate amount of attention he was paying to his daily podcast and his drinking. His own staffers were bringing it up to us. Something was clear to all who were around him almost every evening and many early afternoons: Rudy was est-faced. Basically, Rudy Giuliani was drinking himself into a stupor while all this is happening. So it sort of explained things. The Four Seasons, the Melissa Carone thing, just agreeing to put absolute nutters in official testimony. We were all worried about her being drunk, but it turns out that maybe Rudy was the one. Maybe it even goes back to explain the Borat thing, just sweating hair dye, farting everywhere. Rudy Giuliani was an absolute mess. And yes, this is funny, but it's also emblematic. It's emblematic of the Trump administration's final days of dysfunction. Donald Trump didn't really want someone like Rudy Giuliani to be his lawyer, at least not at such a level of responsibility. Rudy Giuliani was a mess, as we see here. He was drinking and bragging about his podcast 24/7. But when you're a liar, when you're a cheater, when you don't pay your lawyers, including apparently not paying Rudy Giuliani, or at least not sticking to the terms you agreed to, people aren't willing to work with you. When you fire your legal team, when you ask them to make brazen lies unrelated to your trial, lawyers don't want to work with you. And so Trump was relegated to a bunch of losers and, perpetual drinkers and conspiracy theorists. And that really typifies the final day of the Trump regime. And it just shows how everyone that associated themselves with him, at least a lot of the key people, are finding their lives in tatters. Look, Rudy Giuliani could have just retired, in the sunset, made his money, lived off, his time as New York mayor, being this hero, and people would have remembered him at least decently. But he associated himself with Trump, and now he's known as a loser. He's known as a hater of democracy. He's known as a conspiracy theorist. And now he's also being sued for more than $1 billion by some of the companies he defamed while defending Trump. And that's all on top of the possibility that he might be criminally and civilly implicated in what happened on January 6th, because he was speaking at that event where he demanded, trial by combat. Maybe he had a couple that morning. So look, on the one hand, you don't want to mock people who go through issues around substances, but on the other, you really do have to think Rudy Giuliani did this to himself. He chose, when he didn't need to tarnish his own reputation and to tarnish democracy, all out of this lust for attention and for money and for power and for fame. And it cost him. Let that be a lesson to folks.